Heidi ho, everybody.
Hi, friends. Well, from beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast. I'm Dan Beecher.
And I'm Andrea Beecher, filling in for Frank.
Yeah, hi, Andrea. How are
Hi,
you?
thanks for having me.
My lovely wife is here, everybody.
Hola.
Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about Burning Man. The man that burns. There was an article recently that came out. It's happening as you listen to this, unless you're listening to it, way later. But yeah, it's a thing that happens every year theoretically, and there was a whole article about religion and that place. And you and I have both been to that place and both been religious at
various times in our lives.
one time or another. Anyway, we're gonna get to that. Hey, thanks so much for filling in.
Of course. I appreciate you having me. I hope I don't fuck it up.
Yeah, don't do that. You're not allowed to. Okay, well, what do you got for us?
Well, for my first story, I have a delightful little nugget that comes out of Oregon.
Okay.
That's where we all need to zoom in on.
Okay.
And a new law has been passed that allows people who have had amputations to actually take their body part home with them.
I've always wanted to, if I ever had an amputation, I would want my part. I'm sure I couldn't have it. I know that there are laws, but apparently, why? Now, tell me about the Oregon law.
Well, there have been laws in the past, and I think that this is one of the outliers, this new law that allows you to take what is rightfully yours, I think. I mean, it's a part of you. It belongs to you. They've helped you sever it. But yeah, the laws up until now in Oregon have stated that you are not allowed to take your parts home with you, that they now become, just property of the hospital. Or in the rare exception, they've allowed people they've cremated the part and sent them home with the cremains.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
Just the beginning of your end.
Yes. But there is an organization that represents all of the native tribes, the native peoples that are from that region, that have been petitioning for this to change for a long time, because in their cultural and spiritual beliefs, it's very important to them to have all of their person to transition, properly, safely, and, into the spirit world. And so a lot of people are rejecting medical help because they didn't want to leave this world without all their parts.
So, okay, this is another example in Oregon in the United States of the government caving to sincerely held religious beliefs. But at least in this case, it makes some kind of sense. I don't know. I don't know why it has to be a spiritual belief before they let you, before they allow
it can't just be a cultural belief or just a curiosity.
Yeah.
What does my limb look like shrink wrapped? And
wasn't there was a documentary that came out at Sundance a few years back that was about somebody bought a refrigerator and it had a foot in it, and then there was a whole legal battle about the foot.
Right. Whose foot is it now?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it was a barbecue.
Yeah, that's what it was. And
yeah.
A foot. All right. Well, that's interesting. I don't know. I don't know where. So can anybody get their parts now, or only
anybody can get their parts? I believe the law goes into effect on September 24th, I believe.
Okay.
And so in Oregon, regardless of who you are, what you believe, and you can take your parts home.
All right, go get your parts, everybody.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Of all the things to be a stickler about, I guess if something is toxic or I don't know how they deal with that.
It can turn into gangrene or rot. I don't know.
I wonder how they package that up to go. Would you like this gift wrapped, please?
All right, just let's freeze dry it and then put it into it and then vacuum seal it. That's all you need.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But that's just funny. Is it wrapped in a brown bag and some jute, like a parcel? I just think that's pretty funny, but I love it. I think that
if I ever have something amputated, I want it preserved and mounted so that I can put it on my wall.
I like it. Take it to a taxidermist.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm looking for. Okay.
I actually like it. Put some googly eyes on it.
an arm looking at you. I think though on the whole I would prefer just not to lose any of my bits.
On the whole, huh?
Keep my bits. Well, I'm going to move us to Texas, where there's been a thing. There are chaplains in Texas for various reasons. You know, hospitals tend to have chaplains. There's lots of reasons why you might need a chaplain. One of the worst reasons to have a chaplain, however, would be for public schools. But that hasn't stopped the Texas legislature from deciding that they could pass a bill clearing the way for religious chaplains to kind of take the place of like
a school counselor?
Counselors, yeah.
No.
Yeah, so
do they plan to have a different type of chaplain for every community?
No, I mean, technically chaplains in a multi-faith environment are supposed to be non-denominational. Non-denominational.
That's not going to happen in Texas.
Texas. Here's an interesting thing that's happened, though. Over 100 Texas chaplains, I think they're Texas chaplains, maybe it's just over 100 chaplains in general, have signed a letter urging the Texas school boards to vote against putting chaplains into public schools.
I like that. I think they know their limits.
Well, and they know that that's not what kids need. There are places for chaplains. That's
church.
Or like I said, at a hospital when someone feels that they need a spiritual guide or a spiritual help.
Maybe even like a community center. There could be somebody, a contact.
Okay.
I don't know.
Sure. I don't know all the places that they stick
But not
these
school.
people.
And obviously school counselors go through a lot of education to get to the point at which they're qualified.
Right. And chaplains don't need to go through any of that. As a matter of fact, the law in Texas didn't put any conditions on,
of course they didn't,
whether on what the chaplains needed to be trained in.
The blind leading the blind.
It was a little rough. One of the things that this letter that was released on Tuesday said, it said, quote, "Because of our training and experience, we know that chaplains are not a replacement for school counselors or safety measures in our public schools, and we urge you to reject this flawed policy option. It is harmful to our public schools and the students and families that they serve." I think that's crazy that chaplains are like, don't do this.
Yeah, I love that. I think it takes the few, in the minority view, maybe the minority view in this case, to stand up and be like, "Hey, this ain't cool."
Yeah, I don't know how many chaplains would take this position. I know some chaplains that listen to this show, hi Terry, definitely would take this view. It's very interesting. I have very little hope that these school boards will listen to these chaplains because they are so
self-righteous.
They're all ideologues, and none of them actually care about the children. What they care about is indoctrinating the people into their Christianity. It is
what they're accusing, gays and
right, yeah.
the woke to, do.
So
accusing us of doing.
They're making sure that they're doing it instead. So there you go.
Boo.
But at least the chaplains are smart about it. It's weird.
I love that somebody stepped up and said, hey, no, no.
Yep.
Reject. That gives me a little bit of hope.
Good.
Well, in my next story, it's just a continuation, if you will, of something that you and Frank have been reporting on, because it's happening quite a bit. Oh, I don't know why I laughed. It's just horrible. It's like, I don't know how else to start this other than a deep breath.
Okay.
Another one is bitten the dust. Another one bites the dust.
Don't sing. No, don't sing songs that we don't have copyright for.
Okay.
We get in trouble.
The San Francisco Roman Catholic Archdiocese has filed for bankruptcy.
Oh gosh, I can't imagine why.
I know.
It seems impossible, and we've never reported a story like this before at all.
Well, I don't know why you would guess why. Because this is one of the 3 richest counties. This archdiocese is in one of the richest, 3 of the richest counties in the country. So the fact that they need to file bankruptcy, guess why?
Yeah. I mean, literally everyone listening to this podcast is ahead of you. So go ahead and just say it.
So they are filing for bankruptcy so that they can manage more than 500 lawsuits alleging child sex abuse against this archdiocese. And
because as we say on TGIA, if you have a diocese, you have a pedophilia problem.
Yes, indeed. And the archdiocese, he is saying that unfortunately the reality is that they don't have the financial means to settle all of these claims and to litigate all of these claims. And so they're filing for bankruptcy because they just don't have the money to take care of all of this properly. Right. But really what it means is they've got plenty of money, but bankruptcy allows them to hide all of the records that people want made public.
Well, there's that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and he's not wrong. Like, if they had to actually litigate each of the lawsuits in court, it would cost them a fortune. And I think doing this actually allows them to kind of lump it all together.
That's true. And that would be fine if they'd already released the list. They are the only archdiocese in California that has not released the list of alleged predators.
Oh, that's
cute.
So
that's cute. So we know what the motivation here is. It's obvious.
Yeah.
If they had, put the list out, then we could be a little less skeptical about it.
Well, what we've learned over the years is that what's the important thing is to protect the predators.
Absolutely.
Because won't someone think of the perpetrator?
What about the predators, Dan?
What about the perpetrators?
Well, and the leader of this archdiocese, he's one, even if you haven't heard his name, Cordileone. Is that how you say it? What is this, the Godfather? He has established himself as one of the most prominent and outspoken hardline conservatives in the Catholic Church. So even if you don't know his name, you've heard the story. He's the one that last year told the world that Nancy Pelosi was not allowed to take communion because of her pro-choice stance.
Yes. He's a grumpy pants.
He's a very big grumpy pants.
He's a Mr. Grumpy Pants.
Boo-hoo.
But at least he looks out for
the predators.
The bad guys.
Heaven forbid.
So, probably is. It's worse than The Godfather. It's much worse. The Godfather's victims were all other bad guys mostly.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Well, but he's the head of a gang, an organized crime ring.
Yeah, but it's a pedophilia. It's the victims are children, so it's like the worst kind of crime ring. That's what. No,
I guess that's true. Crime wing, nonetheless. But you're right. The victims are
we ones?
It's much worse.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna let's just keep it a little depressing for a second.
Okay.
This isn't that depressing. It's stupid, is what this one is. Apparently, in Appalachia, in Bledsoe, Kentucky, there's a place called Pine Mountain Settlement School, or PMSS. Which that's a little rough, but okay. Pine Mountain Settlement School is a place that you can rent out for events. It's got a huge grounds. It's got like 800 acres and a bunch of different buildings there. And apparently it's very pretty.
Why is it bad that I keep thinking of, banjos and backwoods?
No. We're not going to go there. We're not doing, we're not stereotyping the Southerners for this one.
I'm just getting a little afraid.
Well, there's not a person, you don't need the dueling banjos. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
No one's yelling squeal like a pig. But what did happen was an artist's retreat.
Okay.
There's a group called the Waymakers Collective, which is a nonprofit that does like artist grants and stuff. And they were having this retreat in this area. It was a very multicultural sort of thing. People of all races and creeds and whatever. And one of the things that they decided to do, they rented out the entire
property, huh?
The entire campus. And one of the things they decided to do was take the non-denominational chapel and convert it to a healing space, which was something that they instituted last year when they did the same thing, because there had been a lot of flooding in Eastern Kentucky. And so a lot of people were coming off of either like heavy work to fix the flooding
or loss
or a little bit of loss, whatever. So they decided to create a space that was, in this chapel.
Okay.
And then, so this year they do the same thing. They've got candles, they've got stuff, but they don't want it to be like Christian-y. This is hippy dippy stuff. So they put in an image of the Om symbol, which a lot of yoga practitioners like. It's in Sanskrit lettering and whatever. Well,
oh no,
that got posted onto some Facebook page or something, and the locals weren't having it. They were not going to have some heathen symbol in their non-denominational, non-Christian chapel.
Also, it is the least threatening and divisive.
Yeah, it's just a nothing thing. But man, anything that ain't got a cross on it is Satan to them. So,
oh my God.
They came in and literally...
Would they have been just as mad in their non-denominational space if there was a cross or a crucifix put up?
That would be totally fine.
Uh-huh.
This was... And so, they decided they were going to go in and raise hell. They literally kicked these artists out. And, this is a bunch of artists. They weren't going to... A small mob came in. It was like 8 or 9 people. They came in and were like, "You guys got to go. You guys got to. Nope, you can't do this. You're gonna have to get out." And so they left.
Can you remind me? Is this a community-owned space? Tax dollars go into it, or is it privately owned?
I think it's private.
Well, then. Who are they to say get off these people's property? They've paid rent for the space.
But it is a local community space, and it's a local space, and one guy who happens to be a local judge of some sort had tweeted about it and just said, I support these guys. I'm appalled. He said literally, it made me sick at my stomach. This is the same chapel Stephanie and I got married, and we have attended many wedding and nativity plays. I would ask folks to allow staff to explain the situation. Anyway, blah blah blah. They were so outraged they kicked these people out. The people left early. They ended up canceling their stupid thing because they didn't feel safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, nobody was violent, but when a mob comes in and starts yelling at you and telling you you're defiling their place, even though you paid for it, you rented it, you're gonna feel threatened. You're gonna, So,
I hope that the people who own the property sue for loss and damages, and who also get a life, people. Do you have nothing better to do than to raise hell about something that is so not a big deal? No, God, people.
It is a big deal. Try that in a small town, is what they all chanted in their minds as they bravely went forth to kick the hippies out of the place where they got married.
I'm exhausted.
It's so stupid.
With stories like this. It is just so lame.
Yeah.
And disheartening.
One of the guys who was a member of this mob that went in, his name was Tate Napier, posted about it on Facebook so proudly, and then was interviewed by a reporter from the Tri-City News. and here's what he literally said. The people in the chapel said they were doing nothing wrong, and I asked if they were in there to worship Jesus, and a few started raising their voices at me, so I told them to just get their stuff. We weren't there to argue, and I even helped them gather their things.
Oh, what a good person.
Generous soul. They called the sheriff, by the way. The mob called the sheriff. And of course, guess whose side the sheriffs took? The deputy showed up. and this is Tate again, says, and they agreed to stay out of the chapel, but then ultimately they decided to leave because they said they felt unsafe. Yeah, motherfucker, you're the one that made them feel that. Like, this guy is proud that he made these people feel unsafe. These people
are so ignorant, and they can't even hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
Did the people who own the property make a statement?
Not that I've seen.
That's unfortunate. I think there should have been, like, if these people are going to start this conversation, I think the other side needs to, voice why or somebody needs to say why this is not okay.
Right. And also, like, one of the interesting, there are all these, comments on Friendly Atheist Hemant's page. One of them, I love this. It says, it's about that judge who was who said he was sick at his stomach, and it says, an ohm triggered you, Judge Snowflake. You're pathetic. Yeah. You want to talk about being triggered?
Yeah.
You literally saw something that was none of your fucking business, and you flipped out.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Snowflake,
there you go.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so in my final story, somebody else throwing a fit.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Gotta love a good fit.
Yeah. Another boo-hoo moment here. But to start the story, I'll start with the good part of this.
Okay.
In Colorado, Democrats passed a law establishing free preschool across the state beginning this year.
Oh, good. I
know. Really awesome. Children can now access half-day programs, which is about 15 hours a week at no cost to their parents. The governor's office said that it would save families on an average of $4,300 a year and give kids a head start in their education, and obviously helps families, underprivileged or, otherwise getting their kids into preschool.
Yep.
But in order,
just families that need, both parents can't be at home.
Yeah, exactly. This is a
great.
win. This is, investing in our children's future.
Oh, well, that's a problem. I smell a problem.
Bum bum ba in order for any institution to receive this funding, they have to follow just some simple basic rules. Should be pretty easy. For example, they can't discriminate against students. They have to accept kids regardless of their family's race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, etc., etc., etc.
Right, which shouldn't be a problem.
No.
But ...
Except for, the Catholics. Today, the Catholics, man. The Denver Catholic Archdiocese and 2 of its parishes are now suing state officials because they want to receive taxpayer funding without giving up their bigotry.
Yeah.
And what I hate, obviously, but also what I love about this story is that they are literally coming at this saying exactly how hateful they are and why they should be allowed to continue their hate. Like, it's nothing other than, we want to continue being hateful and receive public money.
Right. Yeah. It's no fair that all these other schools that don't discriminate get money and we don't get any. Like, and also, come on, you guys. You guys have been operating without this public funding. I'm guessing that these are established preschools. These are.
Yes, and they have been getting state money.
Oh, have they?
They have been getting some state money.
Okay.
But they will be afforded more if they give up their bigotry.
Yeah.
And what they're saying is that their business is going to hurt. They're not going to, that from a capitalist point of view, people are going to go elsewhere for preschool because...
because why would you pay for bigot school? I mean, there are plenty of people in this country who will
pay for bigot school. But it'll hurt their bottom line.
Yeah.
And
I hope so.
Well, and this is what I don't understand, Dan. And maybe you can shed some light because you're certainly more of an expert on this than I am. Religious organizations are already tax-free anyway, so that they can benefit the community with the dollars they're saving on tax payments.
Sure.
So how is it that they're allowed to do any of that anyway?
To double dip?
To double dip.
Yeah. That's a great question. That's a fantastic point. They're already getting government money just by existing.
Exactly. Well, and what's more interesting to me is that, and of course, all they have to do is just not accept the state money and keep functioning as they want to, but they want to, double dip.
Yeah.
But what's funny is that, if any of you are familiar with the Catholic Church, divorce is considered a sin. Yeah. Abortion is considered a sin. There's a lot of things considered sins, but they're not discriminating against families that are, discriminating against children that come from divorced families. So really this is just an attack on the LGBTQ plus community, the transgender community, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because they're not refusing to admit kids, that come from other sinful households. So it's like all these levels of just idiocy and bigotry, and it's really dumb. And I love that they have filed a lawsuit basically stating how shitty they are and how they want to continue being shitty.
Yeah, that's a thing. All right. Well, speaking of shitty, I'm going to take us to Provo, Utah.
Oh, God.
Home of that wonderful university of Brigham Young, his fine institution. And which is, of course, the Mormon-owned university down yonder, where they have changed the honor code a little bit. They've updated the honor code. Now, BYU does not exist solely in Provo. There's one in Idaho. There's one in Hawaii. Anyway, so BYU, up until now, all of these different institutions had their own honor codes that were like kind of, they were roughly the same. But I don't know if you know the Mormon Church. They cannot abide things not being centralized. They don't want anyone outside of like the the church office building downtown to count. They need to be in control of everything. So they have centralized the honor code. It is now something that it's called the CES honor code, which stands for the Church Education System honor code. And this is there's not much that's new in it. One of the things that is new is that BYU Idaho, which was the most Gestapo of all of the BYUs. It's the hardest core. Okay. They are the worst.
They're more rural, and so
it's super rural.
Yeah.
There are only Mormons there. At BYU in Provo, they bring in some non-Mormons every now and then, mostly to play sports.
Absolutely.
And there are, believe it or not, if you've been there are non-Mormons surrounding you in Provo. Not a lot.
But it's I would say a teensy bit more diverse. It's got the influence of a larger culture.
Well, when you compare it to Rexburg, Idaho, it's 1,000 times more diverse. So, there are even people with melanin in their skin there and everything. So, one of the big changes is now those in Idaho, students in Idaho, can wear, are you ready? Shorts.
What?
Skun dun dun. Kids, so those Rexburgians are going to be wandering around.
So they've allowed a little bit more leniency, is what you're saying, from the central.
The other BYUs have allowed shorts for a while now.
I'm sure they have to hit your knee.
Well, they have to be long enough to cover up your garments,
so that's
as you know.
Hit your kneecap.
Yeah, the Mormon underwear goes down pretty low on the thigh, so you got to have shorts that are long enough to not reveal the garments, the G's, as they are frequently called. So that's one thing. Another small change in the honor code at BYU is that a new word showed up.
Oh gosh.
And this one's actually a little distressing to me. Normally it wouldn't be, but I'll explain why in a second. One of the bullet points in the honor code is that students are expected to, quote, abstain from alcoholic beverages, tobacco, tea, vaping, marijuana, and other substance abuse.
Abuse?
Yes. You know all those people out there abusing tea, abusing coffee?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, that's a real problem.
Here's the thing. Marijuana's new to that list.
That list, okay.
And I think that the reason that it's there is probably just because kids are starting to see marijuana as not a big deal.
Yeah, because it really isn't.
It's not much of a big deal. But what pisses me off about it is that Utah has fairly recently passed a medical marijuana bill. It is medicine in Utah. It is legally medicine for a lot of people.
That's
for
a
people
great point.
who need it. So throwing that word casual, just chucking it into the you can't use it, and comparing it to all of the evils of alcohol and tobacco.
I mean,
yeah, I think
all them herbs.
It could do real damage.
Well, I'm glad you brought that point of view up, or that comment, because I don't know that I would have thought of that, but this is, I mean, honestly, it's these old white dudes sitting in a room.
Yeah.
They have no sense of the world around them outside their little bubble.
No.
And it's the stupid religion brain.
Yeah.
They don't think of anything outside of just this narrow view of a thing. And so even though our state politics is predominantly Mormon, so there were, a lot of politicians, Mormon politicians, who supported the passing of the medical marijuana, bill.
Yeah.
The brethren aren't the brethren. They're not thinking that, that far past their nose.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll change that and it'll be a divine inspiration later.
We'll see. I don't know if I sent it to you or not. There was a video that came out just this last week that was meant to sort of humanize the apostles.
Oh my gosh, you showed it to me. Snooze fest, and also so pathetic.
And so it's just like a day in the life of one of the members of the Quorum of the 12. This is a man named David Bednar.
He's so plastic and monotone.
And everything was just, and like he goes into his office, and his office is just, it looks like it's just the saddest middle management office. This is a corporation that controls like $100 billion, and he's in the saddest, he's walking
fluorescent
down
lighting,
halls with fluorescent
acoustic
lighting,
tile ceiling,
and then in the most amazingly tone deaf moment I can imagine. This is a PR stunt. This was put out by the church. It was carefully crafted.
Yeah, and they again didn't. Yeah,
to be a PR thing. And then he says, and now I'm going to go in and talk to the Northern Africa and Middle East area leaders about what needs to happen to share the gospel there. And it shows him walk into a room and be greeted by more old white men.
No women, at the very least.
Not a woman,
no person of color.
Not a hint of melanin in the bunch. It was shocking.
So again, they are so blind to how ignorant and
it's a Dunning-Kruger thing. It's the dumbest thing.
It's just this circle jerk of like the same.
Yeah.
Like they can't even see how ridiculous it is to the rest of us on the outside.
Yeah.
Also, I just had this thought. I'm all like sad, and you were saying how damaging, the policy of clumping marijuana use in with all of these, with alcohol and other drug use. And honestly, is it any more damaging than the rest of the religion's, beliefs and rules and all of that?
No, it's just one more. It's just another one. They just add another one.
Yeah, but it's always been there. And
so there you go. Well, friends, if you'd like to chime in on this or any of our stories, please feel free to write into us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com. We're going to skip emails and patron thanks for this week.
But we should at least just say, hey, thanks.
Yeah, that is true. Thank you guys so much to all of our patrons. And also, if you would like to become a patron and shock Frank with the number of people we have to thank next week when he gets back, please feel free to do so. Go to thankgodimatheist.com, click on the support tab. Any amount is welcome and gratefully accepted. More show coming up. Well, what we wanted to talk about, you had found a article on RNS, on the Religion News Service, Andrea, about Burning Man. We teased it at the beginning of the show. And it details a bunch of different ways in which sort of religion finds its way out there. And Burning Man, people should know, Burning Man is expressly, I'll say, spiritual for a lot of people. There is, the biggest structure out there other than the giant man that is going to be burned, the eponymous Burning Man himself. There's also a huge temple that is built every year. It's different every year, which is really cool. Different artists design and build it every year. Yeah. It's really awesome. Yeah. Usually a big wooden structure. And that too is burned the day after they burn the man. But it is a place for reflection. Offerings. People mourn there. People, bring mementos of loved ones who have passed and sort of, tack them onto the building or whatever to be burned with the building. Or when we were there, we wrote a few things about your pop. That's right. On the wall inside the temple. He had just passed. My dad had just passed away, so we wrote his name on there. So it's a place, to sort of Burning Man is not without its sense of spirituality, whatever that ends up meaning. Yeah, it's very different for everyone. Yeah, it can be very hippy-dippy, or it can be, it can be a lot of things. There are some groups that try to go out there and do their own spirituality. There's a story in the article about a Jewish guy who does a sort of very modified version of a Shabbat ceremony. And it's become very popular. It has become a thing, where, he basically gives a sermon. I don't know much about how Shabbat works in the Jewish tradition, but what's cute, I hope that doesn't sound demeaning or patronizing, but he includes in his service, readings from the Torah, but also, makes reference to Burning Man's orgy dome. And he makes it very Burning Man, and then they feast, they drink wine and challah. Yeah. So that's one thing. There's another group. There was a group of Christian scientists who, it could be argued, are neither, but that's not the point. Here nor there. Who go out there, and for a while there, they tried to set up a Christian Science reading room there, which is a big thing that they do. They always have books, and they're all just sort of the books that are of their person. Mary Baker Eddy, I think is her name. Yeah. Anyway, they have since changed that, because that kind of like direct preachiness is never going to be welcome out there. It kind of fits into the same category as like corporate salesmanship that is not allowed there. Yeah, that is 100% not okay. Like you will not be advertised to. You will not. Yeah. And so, and everything's given freely as a gift out of the goodness of your heart. Yeah. A lot of people think that it's like a barter system out there. It is not. But it's not a barter system. It is a gifting system. And that's one of the things that I loved about it, was just the spirit of everybody brings a bunch of stuff that they want to give to people, and they want to be generous, like generosity without asking for anything in return. Not at all. Is a big part of the ethos of Burning Man. And I love that. It's amazing. And everybody shows up in their own way and gives in a way they're capable or able or desire to. Yeah. So whether it's feeding people or giving you an object or an item, a piece of jewelry or something, or, throwing a big party and all of that. Or doing a service, which is what the Christian Scientists kind of evolved to. Now they have a big tent where they will wash the feet of the burners. And I'll tell you this, that's a Jesus thing. It's a very Christian thing. The symbolic gesture of washing someone's feet, but it has never been as meaningful to the recipient as it is out at Burning Man, because everything's dust. It's not sand at Burning Man. It is dust,
and it's very alkaline,
and it gets all over you, and it can be a little rough on your skin. Like you say, it's very alkaline.
It can crack your skin and create some real problems if you don't cover your feet well.
So getting your feet washed is actually something that's genuinely useful out there, and
sweet,
and it's kind of a luxury to have. There's not showers. I mean, there's a camp that provides showers, but there's no showering facilities. You're just out there in the elements. So I don't know. One of the things that this story made me ask was, another part of the ethos of Burning Man is this idea of radical inclusion. And I thought, I guess if I were out there, I would want to feel inclusive of people with religious belief, even though it's not, I find it annoying and whatever. And if part of how they want to give, especially if they can find a way to fit their gift into the ethos that's there and without being preachy is what I was going to say. But, it sounds like this Jewish fella, Zvika Krieger, it sounds like he gives a sermon that is a sermon without preach.
Exactly. And then one of the other events that they also do is or one of the gifts, little pop-up thing that they do inside their camp is called Rituals Are Us. And they're basically just making light of, the Jewish rituals, and you can get an unofficial wedding, funeral, bat mitzvah.
Yeah, I think they have
a circumcision.
I think they have a wheel that you spin, and whatever it lands on, that's the ritual that you get.
Well, and also at brunch, they exchange, in place of lox, they have bagels and hot dogs, but you have to circumcise the hot dog before you can eat it. And then all the tips of the hot dogs that have been, chopped off have to go into the tip jar.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, it's not preachy. They're just trying to create a fun space for people to gather.
And I think, part of the thing that this got me thinking about was, I don't know what the word spiritual means. I've always struggled with that word. Everybody that I talk to has a different answer, and none of them have any sort of concrete ideas attached to them. They're always this sort of ethereal concept that even they will mostly admit they don't understand fully.
I think that's because it's such a personal thing.
The word connection comes up a lot.
Absolutely.
And I think that one of the things that you end up feeling at a place like Burning Man is a sense of connection to other people, which I love.
That's one of my favorite things about Burning Man, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I go out there. I don't go out there for the rave atmosphere or the drugs or the naked people or whatever. I'm fine with all of that. All of that is fine. But I go out there because I love the art and I love the people. I love experiencing people in a very different way than we normally experience people
in the default world.
Day to day here. Don't do default world.
I knew that would bug you.
That's Burning Man speak. But yeah, I think there is something to it. So I guess what it's got me wondering is about how these spiritual needs can be met when for someone like me who I don't want to touch someone else's spirituality with a 10-foot pole. You know what I mean? Like, yoga gets a little too womp for me when they start to use, Sanskrit words that they don't need to be using. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like when you start to take the word namaste, which just means hello and goodbye, and you turn it into like the light in me recognizes the light in you.
Yeah, it's great exercising, balancy, stretchy stuff. That's but does it need to be religious and spiritual?
I personally get annoyed, when you start to play Enya type music and there's gongs or whatever, and that's just me. I'm fine with other people liking it and with it resonating really strongly with other people.
Absolutely.
But it is interesting. I think that we as a atheist community do need to probably do more to engender a sense of spiritual fulfillment, a sense of greater connection between each other. And I wish we had a good model for that. That
Burning Man.
That didn't come from that didn't come from Christianity, that didn't come from any kind of theism, that didn't have. The nice thing about Burning Man is that everything has sort of by necessity is reinvented.
Yeah.
And turned over, and what you want is to ask, how can I flip this on its head?
Yeah.
How can I bonk this in a funny way? How can I make this charming,
funny,
and delightful, and surprising, and interesting, and not annoying? And I love that about that place. And I wish that we could I want new ways to take that ethic and apply it out here in the default world.
Well, totally. I also think, and I'm not a fan of organized religion.
What?
I know, weird, right?
How dare you?
But I guess if it's going to exist, I want it to exist in a world, in the realm of absolute acceptance, non-judgmental place, no discrimination, no preconceived notion of who's right and wrong and who's welcome and who isn't. And so I think it's promising, I guess, from a human perspective, from a humanity perspective, that there are faith leaders that are looking to Burning Man as a model for how to conduct their religious way of being, because they see it as a way to keep their version of spirituality alive, because so many people are leaving religion because it is so hateful.
Even if they could just open up their idea of acceptance,
yes.
just that idea, of radical. It doesn't even have to be that radical.
No,
just accept people. Like, literally, all you have to do, your whole job is just to acknowledge and honor the humanity of every human. And they fail at that.
Yeah.
Like, that is your whole job, and you do a shit job of it. Even if they could just take that much away from this stupid event that is,
absolutely,
it's half Coachella now and half whatever.
But that to me means that there are people, regardless of their religious affiliation, that are willing to look beyond, their book and what it supposedly says, and all of the cultural bigotry that's built into any one religion. I mean, maybe ironically, maybe what I'd like is for less faith leaders to have that realization and more religion just dies. That would be great. But I guess if they're going to exist, I'd rather they have this attitude.
I agree with that. I think that they should take away from it that, and I think we should take away from it some sense that that we have needs beyond logic and reason. No, not. I'm saying us. Like we as atheists.
As atheists, I see.
Have needs beyond just sort of what reason and logic and can give us, or rather, it is logical to say to tend to these emotional and for lack of a better word, spiritual needs. So yeah, I don't know how to do it. I hope that you guys are out there thinking about it, because I don't know what to do. But I'm throwing it out there. Hopefully, who knows? Maybe you and I will be at Burning Man next year. We're not going this year, but
yeah, I did love that about it, and I think that especially outside of the religion, just our country in general is so divided right now, and religion's very much tied into that, but just ideologies in general are splitting people splitting families in half and all of that. And so I feel like what I loved about Burning Man is I just didn't feel any of that. You kind of escape all of it. And, I loved that. It was kind of a press pause. And so I want there to be more of that.
All right. I agree with you. So, Andrea, thank you so much for being with us.
Of course.
Appreciate you filling in.
Hope I did the show justice.
You done great. We really appreciate it. If you guys at home would like to comment on Burning Man and, what the hell spirituality means or anything that we've talked about on today's show, please feel free to write into us. podcast@thankgodimatheist.com is the address. You can also call in and have your voice heard possibly on the show. The number for that is 424-666-TGIA, which is 424-666-8442. Thank you so much. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist, and click the like button. Thanks to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their beautiful music, and thanks to Gordon Johnston, whose music we didn't use this week, but do every other week. And thanks to all of y'all for tuning in. We sure do appreciate you. Bye-bye!
Bye-bye!